Hello, good morning. Today we are going to look at structures, and so it's a user defined data type. What do I mean by that? We have seen different types of data types like int for integers, char for character, float and double. These are built-in data types of C. Built-in data type. So that means C provides you these kinds of data types: integers, character, float, double, etc. We also saw that we can make arrays out of this data types, right? That means if I want 50 ints, it's possible for us to do that. If I want 50 character, it's possible, right? But now we are interested in a different kinds of data type which a user, a C programmer wants to create his own data type. Maybe it's not int or float or character. He wants to make something slightly of his own personal choice, a data type of his own choice for his program. So he wants to create such a data type. How can he do that? That's where structures come into picture. So let's consider a built-in data type, and through that example we'll see the use of structures. Okay, consider the following. XY plane. As you can see, any point in the XY plane consists of two values, right? The X coordinate and the Y coordinate, right? So this is you can think of it as a vector AB, two-dimensional vector AB, or you can think of it as a point in a 2D plane. Now, this is a data type, let's say we are interested in. We are interested in manipulating a vector of the following type, a two-dimensional vector. And this is a primitive data type we are interested in. So how do I build such a data type? That's where structures come in. So now first question is, how do I define this data type? Second question is that how can I declare variables of this corresponding data type? Next question will be how to access points, how to access the members of this data type. Okay, so these are the things we will be interested in. So first question, how do I define this particular data type? So we want, so let's say we want two, so these two variables. Okay, so our first question is, how do I define this data type? So let's assume that this XY coordinates, okay, are going to be of float type. So A and B can be some float. In that case, the structure I am interested in, right? So I am going to call it point. So the structure I am interested in will be defined as follows. You will write struct point with the braces. You are going to write inside float A, float B. Okay, so this is how I define a data type. So this is a user defined data type, because the C programmer can define such a data type. Right, now as you could see, this point, this is the name of the data type. So this is like int, char, float, double, etc. This is the name I have given to the data type called point. Okay. Now I have created a data type. Now how can I declare variables using that data type, right? That's the next question. How do I declare variables? How do I declare an int variable? I will write int x. So similarly, I will write for this, I will write okay. So I have now declared a point data type and that variable name is x. So x is now a point data type. Okay. So this is declaring a variable. I have declared a variable. It's clear? Right. Now, okay. So I've created this variable. Now let's say I want to access this variable. I want to write that, I want to say that A is of the value 10, B is let's say 20. Okay. How do I do that? Now to do that, so this is basically how can I access members of this data type. So how do I access A, right? So for that I'm going to use the following notation. X dot B is equal to 20 and X dot B is equal, X dot A is equal to 20 and X dot B is equal to 10. So what did I do? I have created now a point variable X whose th component A has the value 20 and its component B has the value 10. Good. It's clear? Now, so this is, now you can use this x dot a as just like you are using any float variable, okay, because x dot a you can see is a float, x dot b is of type float, so you can just use it like any ordinary float variable you use. How do we formally define a structure? We will write so struct my data type, and then in braces we write the what are the different data types which are inside the structure. Okay, so something like data type X, data type Y, etc., etc. Okay. So this data type can be an int, float, character. It can be a pointer. It can be a pointer to an integer, pointer to a float. It can be arrays. It can even be structures. It can even be other structures. So let's look at a few different examples. We saw how to declare the point data structure and use it. So let's try another example. Let's see. I want to define a data structure for called address, right? How will I do that? So it should look like this. So I'm going to write struct address. Okay, what are the things we want in address? We want house number, let's say, which is an int. We want the street name, let's say. So street name can be, we can define it by let's say a character array, right? I'm going to say that I'm going to assume that the street name is going to be of at most 50 letters. Okay. What else do we want? We can have the location name. We can have the city name. And we can also have a pin code. This is an address data type. Now, now I have defined this data type. I can now use it to declare variables and then use it. Let's say I want to declare a variable my address. So I should write okay. So in this you should notice this is the data type name. This is the data type name which I have to use here. And this is my variable name. Now once I have declared this variable name, I can use it to access each of the members of this data type. So these are called as members. Again, how do I access them? I can write my address dot house number is equal to say 23. Okay. I can store the street name, location name, city name, etc. here in these character arrays. Similarly, the pin code can be stored in this integer array, etc. etc. Okay. Is that clear? Good. I could have even had pointers here. Let's say I want to, rather than I could have used rather than an array, I could have given a pointer to a character. Okay. And then how do I use it? I will have to allocate memory for that and then use that memory to store the city name. It's clear, right? Okay, so how do I allocate memory there? I can use malloc, but if I am using this my address, I should use okay, I just allocate 50 bytes to city, right? So I can use it just like any other. So this is like a pointer to an integer variable. Sorry, a pointer to a character variable. Okay. Next thing is that I can even define pointers for this data type. Just like I define pointers for int pointers, integer pointers, I can define pointers for address data type. How can I declare a pointer to a address data type? Exactly like how I declare a pointer to an int data type. So let's see, how do I declare a pointer to an integer variable? I would have written, right? This is how I would declare a pointer to an integer variable. So similarly, I am going to declare a pointer to the address data type as follows. Okay, I just use the star notation. This way I can use a pointer, I can declare a pointer variable. Now let me just use ptr here. Okay. Now few questions. If this is a pointer, if I am looking at an integer pointer, how do I access the value at the address given by that pointer? If I want to print the value at the address given by that pointer, let's say pt, I would have used star pt, right? I would have written print %c star %d star pt, right? That will print the value at the address pointed to by pt. Okay, so now what about pointer ptr? Where is it pointing to? Pointer ptr is pointing to an address data structure. So let's see how that memory is going to look like first. How is the memory going to look like? It's going to okay, so the memory is going to look like this. This is ptr is pointing to a address data, right? So ptr is pointing here. And how will this memory look like? In the first part of, it's going to start with an integer. Which is basically my house number, right? So initially the first 2 bytes will be 2 or 4 byte depending on the machine, will be the integer for the house number. The rest 50 will be the character for the 50 characters for street. $50 characters for the street, and the next is 50 characters for the location. Then you have a pointer to the city. Right, so it's a pointer to a character. That's my city. So how big is it? It's going to be like 4 bytes again. So this is like 4 bytes. So this is, let's say, 4 byte, 50 bytes, 50, 4 byte. And finally we have another int. Okay. So this is how my address will be in the memory. Okay, and now ptr is pointing to this, the beginning of this structure. Okay, right. Now I want to access, let's say I want to access this point, the house number, I want to access street name, I want to access the location name or city or pin code. How do I do that now? Using the ptr, right? Now if it was an int, I could have accessed it using star int, right? So I can do the same thing here. I can write star ptr to mean the address. So when I write star ptr, it's like I go to the location pointed to by ptr. I can go there and then I can write dot house number. Okay, this will give me the house number. First 4 byte. I could have written dot street to mean the street, or dot city, dot location, dot pin code. I could have used any of these things. Okay, this is just like if I had declared a variable with struct address, a variable, let's say my address, struct address, my address. I could have used my address dot house number, my address dot street, etc. to access that variable, to read or write, to write into that or to read from that. I could have used the same, this dot notation, right? So the same thing I could have used with pointer. I could have written star ptr and then use this dot. Okay. But when you are using pointers, there is another way to write this. So this bracket is important here. Okay. So the bracket is important to correctly access this. Now, if you are using pointers, there is another way you can do this. Another way to access do the same thing is as follows. You could have written ptr minus sign arrow, greater than. So it's like ptr minus sign greater than and house number. We can access the house number using this notation. We can access the street like this. So I could have written house number is equal to, let's say, 53. I could have said for this array, the 0th location of that array should be, let's say, A. I could have written like that. I could have written here also like that. 0th should be A, and this could be 75. Okay, these are both are valid notations.